Hello, everybody. This is somewhat of a different type of guest for Seven Ideas. Um, AI is definitely on the minds of a lot of people in the marketing and advertising industry, and it has been so for the last 18 or so months. And a lot of people have always wanted to have a chat about this, and rightly so. And I guess I just wanted to wait to see how things developed within our industry. We move around a lot. We kind of go with it, too fast at times, and we have to pull back and things. So I just wanted to see how things were, and this is kind of the right time now to really talk about a person like Praveen Senadheera. So Praveen, hello, welcome to this chat session of Seven Ideas. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Z, and really appreciate you having me on the Seven Ideas. Thanks for the opportunity to have a chat, and it's a topic I'm passionate about, and it's in everyone's mind at the moment. At least most people's. Looking forward to our discussion.
So a lot of people might be clicking on this video and where they would normally expect a conversation with a marketer or a person in advertising. They are seeing Praveen Senadheera, who is a senior Azure cloud and AI platforms lead. And I think it's pretty obvious that is someone who works at Microsoft, in this case in Melbourne. So I think a good place to start before I bring you into the world that we're in, maybe help us understand a little bit about the world you're in. What is it that someone like yourself does? And it doesn't have to just be the specific thing about AI, although AI is the thing we're going to be talking about. But more generally, what it is that Praveen Senadheera does within Microsoft, where AI is kind of like the tool that you're kind of selling into your clients. So bring us into your world. What does that mean?
Yeah, no, sure thing, Z. Look, I work with public sector customers. I work with higher education customers like universities, large departments of educations, that support thousands of schools across the state. I work with those customers in, both Victoria, South Australia, and Tasmania. So my role is really focused around, helping our customers navigate technology and technology in the sense technology that exists in the cloud, cloud technologies, infrastructure, data analytics, AI. Ultimately it's about, these are all, as you rightly said, capabilities or tools, right? How this helps my customers kind of navigate their way in their respective industries to kind of really drive the right kind of services and experiences for their sort of citizens or students or educators. And that's really my role. So, part of that is also about, helping customers kind of navigate the current exciting and crazy world of AI. And before we get into it as well, Z, I just want to say that, I worked in technology for almost close to 2 decades now. And in various companies and roles, and always kind of worked in that intersection of business and technology. While I'm a technologist, I've always been passionate about is really what does technology do for people as a person, as an organization, as society, right? Not technology for the sake of technology. And today I really want to have a chat as, Praveen, as opposed to, I'm here to represent my employer or the views and services of my employer, if you know what I mean by that. Yeah.
I think that that's fair. At the end of the day, these talks
Yeah.
are not. This is not about one party versus another. This is about a debate, and you are coming more in as on in the capacity of an expert of a particular topic, rather than being a representative of in this case Microsoft. Fair enough. I think that's a very good place to start. And likewise, I think a lot of the things that I will be sharing, because you don't know much about what's happening in our world, it is also my personal opinions on what's happening. It doesn't necessarily represent everything in the fullness of it, but we just wanted to get to a place where we can share what's happening on each side and how they can be related to each other, how they can help each other. There is something, and we will tackle it. There is a lot of things happening, all industries, a lot of things that are happening within the marketing sector as well. And I'd just like to really hear your opinions on that stuff. So before we do get that, and I just want to kind of finish off one of the things that might clarify a little bit more as to your knowledge and experience in this area. Am I right to say that you mentioned the public sector and education and all that? Am I right to say that the type of audience you would generally be speaking to in terms of selling in solutions, whether they be AI or otherwise, on behalf of Microsoft, these are people who are at like a level 1, level 2 of AI understanding, or are they more at the mature? I mean, I would say that our audience, the marketing industry audience who would be looking at this, are more on the mature end of it because we've been dealing with it for a long time. Is your audience at like a lower level of understanding knowledge? What is it that you're doing? I'm assuming everything is really about getting them to understand more on how the technology can aid them, guide them, help them in their daily lives. But compared to the advertising industry, where would your clients be sitting?
Look, I think it is very industry and organizational specific as well. But in every company, you have parts of the organization that might be more versed in using AI, adapting AI versus others. So, but in my day to day, I work with and happy that I work with spectrum from very basic to very proficient level of AI and implementing and really looking at, okay, how do you go to the next level? So, and everything in between, and that's the beauty of what I do.
Okay, okay.
That's what I love it. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I just want to understand, and also I guess to kind of throw in there the fact that the industry that we are in is not really at that lower level. So if that helps in any way to kind
Yeah.
of curate the conversation a little bit to an audience that probably has been dealing with it in some shape or form, everyone has, but and we will go deeper into as to how we've been using it. But yeah, just to set that tone, so we know that
Yeah. It sounds like
feel
definitely, advertising and marketing, AI is not a new thing, right? So,
it's yeah, it's part of the landscape. It has been for the longest time.
look, I think if we kind of go back to kind of explosion of interest and really the capability being in hands of uh, millions of people. And I think when ChatGPT first came along, it was a service that gathered incredible amount of users in the shortest space of time in history, right? So nothing unlike we've seen before. Um, but I always gonna go back to a moment in time, probably 2026, kind of 10 years ago, like when
2016, you mean?
um,
Yeah.
yeah, 2016, right? So, or a little bit earlier, you might recall this thing called the Internet of Things. That was a big buzzword, and everybody wanted to be a IoT company, or every product or service wanted to have a Internet of Thing element associated with what they do. And we had what we call IoT washing in the industry, right? So,
I hadn't heard that
and
term. IoT washing, is that what it was called?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And what
yeah.
does that mean in this case?
That means like you kind of paint everything with IoT because
Oh,
I've
okay.
got IoT now, yeah, right. So
Tick,
basically, I mean,
basically, what we call ticking the box, ticking the right boxes,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Are you a
right.
brand? Do you
Or,
have this?
or me too, right? I've
Yeah.
got that cool thing as well. So maybe for the audience, like because this was a term coined a while ago, Internet of Thing was really basically the idea of any physical device, an asset, industrial asset, or a device that's out there, like your a set of keys or anything, could be attached to a sensor that can generate data and communicate that data to any person anywhere. So you can use those data, analyze that, uh, drive insights from that, and and improve products, services, and customer experiences, right? So, and and when this came about, like, when it kind of really sort of, I wouldn't say it went mainstream like AI did in 2022, but at least in the technology world, in the industrial world, it was touted as the next industrial revolution, right? You know, in the Internet of Things, after Industry 4.0 is what it was coined as, right? So, but then in the consumer world, we've got taking everything back to the consumer lens as well. I think is quite useful. What came about is all these. I used to call it Internet of Crap, because every you don't connect everything just because it can be connected, or it's because the sensor is cheap, or
Okay, I'm seeing where you're going with this now. Keep going. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's the point of having a connected belt, or connected fork, or a connected belt that tells you, you're putting this at 2 centimeters more. What's going on, or like, you don't need technology to tell you that, right? So just because you could, and everybody was doing it because it was, but that doesn't mean, and a lot of that was happening even in organizations, was like experiments. So I'm just playing around with the technology, see what I can do. But at the same time, there were massive deployments happening and improvements in organizations. Like, for example, think, a power utility, or water utility, doing things like monitoring um, um, sewages, water flows, detecting things like blockages before they happen,
So
all that
yeah.
kind of
So
stuff
so I
drive
I,
real
I get
value.
that. I understand how
Yeah,
you were
yeah,
suggesting that was like the uh, earlier new kid on the block before the AI thing kind of took over.
yeah, yeah.
How
And
is this coming back into the AI
yeah, so let's
conversation?
bring it back to AI, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, and I'm coming back to the cat videos, right? And
Yeah. Okay.
everyone can dream up videos. That's great. It might provide a bit of comical relief and things like that. But ultimately, you mentioned like the word sort of, there's some AI slop happening, and so on. But again, this is why it's so important in the world of AI. Look, in my opinion, you got to have human in the loop, right? It's about AI is a capability and a tool. So we've got to decide what is useful for us, what's relevant for us, and how do we use it, and how do we present it, whether it's internally, externally, within an organization. So I feel like the control should be with us, of how we adopt it, right, in a meaningful, useful way. So if we are in charge of that and it's still sloppy, well, guess what? There's accountability there, right? Well, if I did that, well, I just let that slop out there. Well, why did you do that, right? What did you think, that you can just don't want to be part of the process of developing whatever it was, right? And so this is where I think it's very much human plus AI is really what is exciting about what we are in right now.
I certainly think people like myself in the industry would agree that is the way to do it, and certainly the PR statement from a lot of the ad agencies would say the same. And we'll talk about it a little bit more. I just want to finish off the interesting metaphor that you've made here, equating IoT as like we've been here before, and IoT was something that we did. Am I right to say then, if the metaphor for AI is just the bigger, better, robust version? I mean, they're very different things. I get it, but the way we embrace them are had like similar trajectories as I think where you were going with it. Is it then right to say that the AI slop version of AI within IoT was the overkill of IoT? That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
When we went
overkill,
overkill,
and for the c- measuring something for the sake of measuring, with the understanding, like, okay, what value I'm getting, you know
right?
you know yeah, it's useful to know if a bin is full or not, right? And but is it useful to know that I don't know what's uh, you've got a fork and that's got a sensor and this is how many
Yeah,
times you moved it.
I I've got to blame Shark Tank and Dragon's Den for shit like that. That's where you saw half that stuff. Okay, so no, there was a point I was trying to make here. So if that's the case, Mr. Praveen Senadheera, you're the one who's made the analogy. While be it although you're not saying one is the same as the other, but if we can look at the trend was the same, is it then fair to say, yeah, but then what happened to IoTs? We are talking
Yeah.
about it in the past tense, so that's not the
Yeah, and I'll
same.
tell you what's really good question, Z, because we don't really talk about IoT anymore, right? Because for me, the useful elements of what the Internet of Things industry brought along has pretty much been adapted and normalized across business processes. Now, utilities are, rolling out hundreds of thousands of connected meters, sensors, measuring things. Same thing happening in mining industry, and so on. Right. So this is just very much part of the day-to-day business as usual processes of continuously improving the operations, driving better outcomes, getting better yields. If you're talking about agriculture, so this is now in practice. It's not a thing anymore. But the big difference with AI is the impact it has from an individual, community, a team that you work in, an organization, and society as a whole. The impact of AI is, I think, at a scale unlike we've ever seen before. So that's the fundamental difference. Um, so that's why I feel like we will be talking about AI for a few more years to come. Yeah, because
A
the the,
lot
the,
more than
the
a few more years, I'm sure, but yeah.
yeah, right. The fundamental, the scope of that impact. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. Even though we don't talk about IoTs, the Internet of Things anymore, it's not because it didn't work or it failed. It's it 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 we we
We
embraced it.
standardize it.
Yeah, we stand. You're right.
Yeah,
That's the right word.
yeah,
We standardize
yeah,
it to the point where we don't need to call it that. We don't need to refer to it by name anymore. It is just part of the ecosystem. I guess is where you're going with it. And in a way, I suppose then you are saying that's probably where the AI is going to go. What we are now calling out by name with those two letters, very much like IoT, the three letters. At some point, it's just going to be part of life, and it is what it is. It's not that it's going anywhere, much like IoTs have not gone anywhere. It's just that it is now part of. It's like breathing air. You don't think about it.
yeah.
It's just the way that life functions. Fantastic,
Not the
fantastic.
world before AI, after AI, and AI has been there for a long time, and
Yeah,
organizations have been leveraging that machine learning analytics. But I think if you're talking about that November 2020
two. Yeah.
um, 22 moment, like kind of pre that and post that, right? So we keep evolving and at a ridiculously rapid pace. Yeah.
I had a guest in from Canada recently, and we were having a topic on how the pandemic changed brands completely. He's the creative boss of a healthcare advertising firm in Toronto,
Hmm.
and he was talking about how post 2020 every brand has become a health brand, right? Because once the pandemic happened, needing to care about your health, your wellness became very important, and almost overnight, all brands started adopting, like, we are healthy, we have a wireless charger that puts a UV light on your phone, right? Those things happen, and it only happened because of the pandemic. What's the relevance? The relevance to AI and AI slop, rather, with this is the conversation I was having with that guest was, we always knew how to make a UV light for a UV light shining on a wireless charge pad on a car. We just never needed to do it. The one thing you can always guarantee with marketing is if there's money to be made there, we're going to do it. Until there is a viability, a marketing viability for something, it doesn't have to exist. Okay, so that was that conversation. How that's related to the AI slop is I share what you're saying about responsibility of using AI for the right things. But AI slop is a bit like there's money to be made there. So we will continue to do
Can you
more
give me an
of it.
example, Z, of kind of, when you talk about AI slot, kind of maybe in your kind of industry or line of work, can you sort of bring that to life for us?
Sure. Look, okay. This is my understanding of AI slop. I would say AI slop is certainly social media is the primary platform in which it gets disseminated. But let's
Yeah.
say it is videos, and it's my easy go to video of in China right now. Okay, how about this? Yeah, in China right now, they are creating vertical format dramas with AI voice actors in Mandarin or whatever language they would be speaking in for those
Yeah.
series, but the characters are not human; they are cats and rabbits, and they have literal episodes of cats and rabbits having a teledrama, a soap opera, a Bold and the Beautiful. They've got full series of that. I myself, I would categorize that as AI slop. The problem is not the entertainment. Entertainment will exist, but at the end of the day, if there is money to be made, more money will be pumped into it. This is all gonna come back to marketing. Don't worry, it's all gonna come back to marketing. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, if there is a market, if there are millions of people on the phone in the subway or wherever it is in China who are
It is
literally
really kind of intrigued
watching
by that.
webisodes, they're watching
Yeah.
webisodes. They want to get to the next episode, and it's utilizing AI technology, data center, water, energy, life, to do this shit. And I think there's a disconnect between what Praveen Senadheera's sell of AI is on a from a job point of view to how we're using the resources right now to do it. That's what I mean by AI slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you control that? Because that has an impact on marketing, obviously.
Yeah. Look, I think, um, you know, something that AI, a lot of the tools that have come about has happened is, democratize that technology, right? But slowly you're starting to see, not everything's free anymore, right? So, all the players are looking to monetize the offerings, right? So, suddenly making that cat video or cat drama, and look, I like cats myself, so cat lover, so no, nothing wrong with that. But um, if if there's no kind of, I suppose, commercial benefit, etc., maybe those things won't happen. But um, ultimately, it's, the other day, like, I mean, like anything, like, I don't know, in the weekend, I don't know if you saw this coming through. In This is an Australian media, right? There was a chap. He's Bear with me. Quick story, right? This is on the other side of the AI slop, right? So, he got a dog from a shelter, a Steph, um, in 2019, just before COVID, right? And lovely dog, and unfortunately, it got a diagnosed with deadly tumor in 2024, right?
Oh, I
And
know the story.
you know the story, right? Yeah,
But please keep
yeah.
going. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I think the dog was given, a couple of months to live, and this gentleman, I think his name is Paul Conningham. He happened to work in the tech industry as well, and I'll come to that. And he spent, $1,000 in chemotherapy, etc., but still wasn't working. So what he did was he found a university to do DNA sequencing um, of the cancer, as well as a healthy part of the dog's body. And then he used ChatGPT and analytics engines to actually then crunch that data with, and then find the right protein folds that would play a role in identifying the right type of treatment. Then then he was able to work with, I think it was um, RNA labs to actually manufacture a customized vaccine, which was then administered by the only ethical, only sort of scientists that had ethical rights to do that in Australia, and it's really given another lease of life for this dog. And I don't know if it's completely cured, but now it's running around, and now that treatment's now being looked at for human trials. Now, for me, when I read this story, like, man, it warmed my heart, because would we have ever gotten there, without AI? But also, it's that combination of AI and human spirit, and this guy was really, really focused on getting to a solution, right? And for me, that is kind of life changing. That could change down the line lives of millions of people, right? That combination of things that happen, right? This is what AI makes possible as well, right? So I think, and there's those kind of examples, I feel like coming up in different industries as well. So um, we, I think this is where we gotta invest in things that, what I think,
Like
that
this guy.
drives substance. There you go. Yeah, I'm sure that story would have warmed your heart as
Well,
well, my
obviously,
friend.
obviously, I
Yeah,
have something
yeah,
personal there.
yeah,
Look, no one is denying. Let me let him out of the office. Go for it.
yeah.
Um, no one is denying what AI brings to the party in terms of innovation and changing lives, uh, from medical, not just a scientific perspective. A lot of things. I think no one is scared that AI is here to improve lives. I don't think that's the concern. When about 10 years ago, the craze of impossible meats. Remember that? Impossible
Case of
burger,
what? Sorry?
impossible burger, like meatless burgers and things like that.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
meatless patties, because of, for people who are like, conscious about how much energy we're using to eat
Yeah.
beef and
Yeah.
stuff like that. We're getting into, I
Yeah.
don't want to get in down that rabbit hole, but so you understand the case, right?
Yeah.
And then what happened, and I saw this in a documentary recently, that the way the meat industry kind of clapped back a few years in was they I'm going to call it the Impossible Burger, but those fake meat companies, the Impossible Burger people, they kind of died out. Number one, it was very very expensive, and they were not in the they didn't have enough um, politicians, in their pockets, right? And in a way, they've always just stayed as this specialty meat. And at the end of the day, if we can't afford it, the market will not grow. That's what the trend shows of things like Impossible Burger, right? What you've mentioned, like say this going into human trials for a cancer cure for animals, going to human trials, fantastic. It's because there's going to be someone who's pushing to go to get behind it, right? That's great. And at the same, and there is also a world where the AI slop. There are people who are willing to put money behind it. In both cases, in the case of cow versus fake meat, there's energy that's required to create cow meat. There's energy that required to make the fake meat. There's energy to make the cancer research, energy and cost, and there's energy and cost to make the AI slop. The concern that I think we're discussing is that level is kind of skewed right now, because, as you said, the word you used, democratization of the technology. In the case of the fake meat, it's not democratic. It's scientists, it's lab techs, right? These are people who
Mm.
are experts in their field are doing it. AI, the way when you give AI to laymen, and that's the power of AI, right? The power of AI is Praveen can be sitting in his home and he could help his dog right now because he has this very powerful tool on it. When you, I'm not trying to suggest, by the way, please don't massacre me. Anybody who listens to this, I'm not suggesting we should take it away and only give it to experts and people who are responsible. But when you give the technology to anybody, you end up with the AI slop parts. You know what I mean? It just happens. We can't avoid that. And if you can make more money doing one over the other, it will prevail. It will always be popular.
Yeah.
I think we've talked a lot on a broad sense. I want to now slowly bring it back to marketing. In the same way that a car exists with a UV light to clean your phone because of the pandemic, that is got to be marketed, and marketers come in and try to sell it, right? The way AI has been adopted, it's very much very reactive in the industry, right? In so when you say, you mentioned something like things are not free anymore for AI, right? You mentioned that. Do you think advertising is free? Technically, advertising is free to the consumer. You know what I mean? You say that you have to pay to create the slop, right? Technically, advertising is free. You just have to switch it on, and it's there, and you can react to it in some way.
As
Someone's
in
someone's
to
footing the
consume
bill.
advertising? Are you as a
Yeah,
consumer of
yeah,
advertising?
yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
And the people who are sitting on the train watching the cat, I don't have anything against cats either, who are watching the cat video, they're watching for free, but are they? Right? That's the whole marketing conversation, right? Which is to say, whoever is funding it, right? If you've got a marketer who if you've got a marketer who can make a show with 25 talented actors, let's talk about acting, right? 25 talent actors, or I can do it for 1/10, and I can still have them engaged with cats and rabbits doing the same thing. You will invest in it, and vis-a-vis marketers will get behind it.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, I don't have to tell you this, but to a large extent, it's a consumer-driven economy when it comes to that, right? It's what
Yeah,
is
but
appreciated, valued
so was the fake meat.
by, right?
But so
Yeah,
was the
and
fake
it
meat.
didn't. Yeah, it didn't get
Critical
the take
mass.
up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't get the take up. But if the cat videos are getting the take up, well, then there must be a market, right? So
So yeah,
it's
okay,
it's
good.
it's it, it's a need. It obviously has been an unmet need until now.
So yeah, this is that funny conversation between what is worthy marketing, what is not. Right off the bat, I think you don't have to be in marketing and advertising to agree with me in saying that 95% of all advertising and marketing is shit. Right? It's just the nature of how it is. You're only going to have 5% of some really, really good stuff, and 95% is always going to be slop in its own way. Right? And I'm just talking about regular marketing, right?
But that's
With
all right. You got us covered, right? When I don't want to look at the adverts in my prime when I'm watching a prime movie or a cinema thing. I try to switch off on the advertising, and then I pick up my phone while the ads are going. And while I'm going through my Facebook feed, guess what I'm getting?
yeah,
Advertising, right? So
you can run however you want to run, but we will find a way of catching you.
yeah.
Digitization, digital marketing has made that possible. AI, with the way that AI algorithms are understanding what Praveen is doing, sitting at home with the wife and kids, like that's it. It knows everything. These are not problems. These are good things that happen. With that's called the evolution of a category, right? Market. In the same way that you see AI as an evolution of the way we were thinking about technology. In some ways, it enables things for us. In this case, yeah, it is marketing, but it is what we do. That is something that is good for us. The concern, I don't know if it's a concern. Again, I don't want to come across for this chat as I'm the guy who's being negative about AI. I think I'm only sharing this so that you understand what it is that's happening within the world and how it's impacting the industry. You could make a movie before the iPhone. There was a whole production. You needed a big camera, heavy equipment, guys with booms and this and that. iPhone came and now you can shoot everything on your iPhone, right? So you may see it as, yeah, busy. That's great. Well, you've democratized the idea of storytelling, filmmaking, right? That's what the iPhone kind of did in that sense. And the same can be said about how AI in marketing has democratized. I hate that word. Democratized this, right? The thing is that when you've got all of marketing, and we say 95% is shit anyway, and 5% is good, that's 95% of the big cameras as well. So in the
Yeah.
days of the big cameras and the booms, there was still 95% of shit. With democratization of AI, we have 95% of shit, but the number has increased fivefold, tenfold. That's the reason why when you're sitting and the ads are playing and you go to your phone, that's actually part of the reason. Is because
Yeah.
we'll spend $1 million on that, and I can spend $20,000 on this, and I can do that now before I couldn't.
Yeah.
That has impact. You may say, but you're in advertising, you should celebrate that. You're catching me even more. Yes, but I'm also annoying you more. The tone you used when you mentioned that funny anecdote was annoyance. It was annoyance of being disturbed in two places before I didn't have that problem. So what I'm saying to you is that is also a problem, right? And that is being enabled more with AI.
So you're saying perhaps not the best things that you would say was the output is being scaled up,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Sure.
Is
I
that
think there was we could curate things more, and we could be better with it. I don't there's this old saying, the more gray you get, right? We have these things when we get more gray. It's like back in my days, right? There's
yeah.
that back in my daysism. I think I can clearly say when I was growing up in New Zealand, in Auckland, I would say back in my days, the ads were better. I think I can say
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
because nowadays, 95% of those ads are little digital things that you're never going to see or think about again. We just flooded the market, and democratization has enabled that. Why am I going down this rabbit hole? Because I'm suggesting that the fact that you have to look at your phone you have to look at ads in two different places now is because AI has kind of made it cheaper for marketers to do more. And the more we do, the less you need experts to do it.
So let's go back to your kind of 95%, right? I would look at it going, how can you use AI for substance, not for gimmick? How can you use AI for substance to actually amplify that 5%? And I imagine that 5% would have been bloody hard to get to, right? That's why it was 5%, right? And but also when you got there, I'm sure the industry drives amazing results for your customers and your brands, and equally great sort of revenue outcomes for the advertising businesses. So, but it sounds like it's a hard nut to crack. That's why you don't have everybody doing it. But what's changed now? Can you do that 5% more at scale with the help of AI? How's the marketing and advertising industry looking at that part?
There's not one thing happening. There's multiple things happening. Obviously,
Yeah,
I can't sum up in
yeah,
that way. But what I would say is, um, let's say you're a marketer and you've got $1 million. Okay.
Hmm.
And let's say you've been a marketer for 25 years. So for the
Yeah.
first 10 years, you've had that same $1 million every year. And back in the time when we had more control, everything was crafted a lot more. That $1 million could maybe be split into two things, three
So
things.
you're like a brand manager. You've got $1 million to
Correct. I've
spend
got
a
$1 million.
year. Is that
So
right?
let's
Yeah.
say
Okay.
25 years ago, for the first 10 years, I would have taken that million and I would have spent, let's say, $500,000 on a TV ad. And
Yeah.
just to keep it simple, I would spend $250,000 ideas for, let's say, newspaper or whatever, radio, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's your $1 million. Now the same marketing
Well, now
manager.
that's worth 200,000 or something.
It's not about the money. Let's assume the money's the same. There's no
Okay, we're
inflation.
not
Forget about
counting
it.
inflation yet.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
forget that. Now,
Okay.
now it's 25 years later. Now you're $1 million. The
Yeah.
same $1 million has to now create 75 things, right? Because there's 75 channels now. There's Praveen on his phone. There's Praveen on the TV. There's Praveen on the Nest, on the wall, on the Google Home, or whatever it is, right? Like it's everywhere, right? So now I've got to figure out how to use that same million in this make believe situation.
Yeah.
That same million to
Yeah.
do 75 different things. What do you think is going to
Yeah.
happen?
So you're saying, so what
Quality.
you're saying is you're going to dilute your impact
Yeah.
across all these
Correct.
multiple different channels, right?
Right. So now when you've got AI, and
Yeah.
AI can super speed everything at a fraction of the cost,
Yeah.
it's going to be 150 next year things to come up with, not 75.
So
And the more you do, sorry, does that make sense? Like that same single-minded idea that used to have $1 million, now with doing 75, to come up with 75 pieces of output, whatever the output might be, because AI is enabling it. Now the demand, because there is so much noise from a media landscape, the same man with the phone and the TV and all the rest of it, that next year I have to use that same million to do 150 different things. Something will get lost.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that 95 will become 96, 97, 98, 99. And that's the impact that we are seeing.
But I want to double click on that, right? So that, say, 25 years ago, it was a much simpler world. You could spend $1 million on three things and you can drive impact, right? But now you've got all these. I mean, I'm oversimplifying here for the discussion here, right? So, but now we've got multitude of different channels: mobile, web. Within mobile, there's Instagram, there's TikTok, and right. There's so many different channels, right? And is it obviously, this is basic questions like my thinking, but it would, the reason that the message has been diluted across all these channels is probably because it's really difficult to assess which channel would drive the biggest impact. And therefore you've got to really try to cover all of it.
Yeah, we've got fragmented interest across with consumers now, right? Like, no one, you have so many options to get information at so many different touch points. It's getting harder and harder to get to Praveen. And again, I don't want to make it sound like back in the Mad Men Madison Avenue days, newspapers and nice fedora hats. That was the best version of it. This is not a question of the evolution of advertising and messaging and how to do storytelling. This is the fact that when you go from having the ability to use that money, even again ignoring inflation, if you use it to make three things, let's be lazy, let's say only three things, it is understandable that it's easier to do three things than 75 things. But it's also understandable to assume that time spent on creating something is not linear to the amount spent on it. So a $500,000 TV ad, for example, doesn't take the exact ratios time as to make a $50 ad. $50 something else ad,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't work that way, right? It could be skewed more to one side, more to the other side. The point is, it comes down to human capital. I think the point I'm making is, because everything's moving as fast as it can, we have no choice but to move into an AI agent world, because there's no other way of doing 150 things for the same amount of money. The way the market has moved it, there is no other choice, unless you're
But
going to have kids in sewing machines in Bangladesh making ads. It's not going to happen. AI is
but I'm
becoming the
hoping that
inevitable.
there is an avenue there for, with AI, kind of, getting that message across all these multiple platforms, perhaps becomes more economical. Well, which means that you can have a larger portion of the 1 million pie to perhaps drive, some substantive, groundbreaking ideas, things that AI will help you hone in on, whether what's the channel or the idea or whatever that may be. You could you get a disproportionate amount of that 1 million to now suddenly focus more on that groundbreaking idea or campaign that would be that 5%, because you can more effectively get the message out to the masses, leveraging sort of, AI for content generation, banner ads, and campaign operations execution.
I mean, it's a complicated thing to answer, because it's just, without getting too deep into marketing, it's just hard to explain that. See, the advertising industry is not Microsoft. How big is Microsoft? How many employees do you have at Microsoft around the world?
Uh, Look, I'll probably get this wrong. I'm going to say around 220,000. Yeah.
Okay, 220. Really, only 220,000 people at Microsoft around the world. Wow, I
Yeah.
expected the number to be a lot higher. Anyway, that 220,000 generates X amount of money every year, right? The advertising industry, the biggest company in advertising may have 220,000 people as a holding company, because they have many agencies, right? So I would say, even I might get it wrong, but I might be getting it wrong. But let's say 220,000 is the same. The amount of money generated is like, for that is 1/10 of X. They're not making the same amount of money, because it's just the nature of, it's an agent. We are an agent for something else that's going through, right? By definition, you pump in $1 million, we take 10%, and we use the 900,000 to do something, right? It's an agent, right? We're taking a cut. So agencies are a smaller version of it. But while it's smaller, we are very it's a knowledge economy based industry. It's a lot of expertise. It's much like Accenture, let's say. It's like consultants, right? You have consultants who come in, and they are an expert in their field, in its research, its development, and the output in the case of someone like Accenture can be advice or actionable advice. But for us, it's a physical or a visual, or it manifests in some sort of an output that you can consume, right? A consumer can consume. So that means that we have a lot of experts in the field, right? Creativity, it's like filmmaking. A film requires people they need caterers, they need makeup artists, but but the main thing you're selling is the actors and the visuals and all the rest, right?
Yeah.
If you dilute that, it's you don't have the same, you can't use the same talent anymore, right? Again, if the film conversation is an easier one to do, if you apply what's happening with marketing, because of the speed at which we can create output now, and you apply that to the film industry, you will no longer have your Tom Cruises, and because we can't feed them. Sorry, not feed them. He's only got one body. He can't be in 75 films, right?
So
if you
the
can't
film that he is in would be a big ticket, right?
Correct, but there's only ever gonna. What I'm saying to you, the way you're saying to how to improve the 5%, that 5% is never going to become 6. And in fact, Tom Cruise will have to get less. He won't get less in this particular case, but the 5% will
Really, the
get less
5%
love.
will never become six. Why has the marketing advertising industry put a
The film,
ceiling on yourself?
no, the film industry is saying 5% of movies are shit. You only see 5% of the movies that ever exist on planet Earth. You don't watch
Yeah.
100%, right? You go through your streaming, you ignore 95% of what's on your streaming service. You're doing the same thing.
But but that doesn't mean that's what we got to live with. It's just saying.
Yeah, what I'm saying to you is now instead of ignoring 95 individual movies and clicking
Yeah.
on 5, you
But you're
get,
saying greatness is capped. You're saying greatness is capped at
I think
5%.
I think in the arts world, in a
Yeah.
creative industry,
Yeah.
greatness is not something. It's right brain, man. It's not it's not linear, right? You only
Exactly.
have, yeah.
Yeah.
So you will only ever have one Steven Spielberg, and you only have one Wes Anderson. They're completely different from each other, but you can't put it in a lab and recreate. You don't
Okay. Okay.
create another one.
Yeah.
You create a
Yeah.
different thing, right?
Yeah.
And they're very. It's a very scarce resource. The reason,
So
yeah, sorry,
talk about I don't want to keep going back to Mad Men, but who was the character? The
Don
the
Draper,
main creative, huh?
Don
John
Draper,
Don Draper, right?
yeah,
Right. So imagine a Don Draper in today's world, right? Right. Do
he's
you
dead.
think? Uh, yeah.
Won't survive.
Or lead creative, right?
Yeah,
Let's lead creative in today's world. How much of their time in a day, in a month, would they be truly doing things that is what they love doing, they're born to do, versus dealing with the reality of managing a P&L, managing a team, orchestrating things. So does technology now suddenly give these amazing humans that's got this unique creativity? Does technology, and more specifically AI, give them more time to play there? Because AI can actually take care of a lot of the noise that happens in their day, or manage, oversee, help other things that they otherwise get involved in.
I can't speak for the whole industry because, particularly because I talk to people from North America down to the
Yeah.
Antipodes, right? So they have different experiences in different places. But what I would say, I mean, there was a thing that came out recently. Um, I have it right here. Here we go. This is happening in our industry. It says CEOs are firing creatives for people who have taste and can use AI to steal someone else's work. So the answer to your question in a way is no, they would rather just get rid of Don Draper and just have someone who knows how to flip through the magazine and know what's good fashion. I use fashion just to make it easy for the conversation,
Yeah.
and say, AI, I like this, I like these shoes, I like this skirt, I like that, I like that, I like that. Make it. And what they're saying is the way advertising is going is you're not going to have Louis Vuitton, you're not going to have Yves Saint Laurent anymore because you don't need him, you don't need her anymore. You can the equivalence of what's happening, if this article is to be believed, is CEOs are firing creatives, i.e., Yves Saint Laurent, for people who have taste and they can use the AI to steal someone else's work. They can make a new version of an Yves Saint Laurent collection. You don't need Yves Saint Laurent anymore. This is
Yeah.
happening. It's actually even happening in the fashion industry. It's happening in film. It's happening in fashion. It's definitely happening in marketing.
Look, that resonates. What you just said resonates with me as well, and I don't. I'm not saying I agree with the scenario you just said, but what is happening there, and I'm a true believer in this as well. Like, um, you know, for me, I don't feel like, I'm not. You're not gonna be. Oh, I'm talking to me. I don't. Like everybody else. Like I work in an industry that's hugely impacted by AI. Like I think, along with marketing, advertising, technology industry is one of the top three in terms of impacted by AI. Right. So, um, I I truly believe, you're more likely to be replaced with someone who knows how to use AI than be replaced by AI, right? Who knows how to use effectively, right? But however, what if Yves Saint Laurent got really good at actually working with AI? Like, where could they go? Like, this is, uh, I
You're
mean,
you're,
it's
you're
about
right.
us as individuals. We have to evolve and adapt, right? We have to evolve and adapt, right?
The, you're right. I saw a meme on Instagram recently where a farmer is talking to a horse. It's an animated comic strip,
Yeah,
and it says the farmer is telling the horse, "You're not going to be replaced by the tractor. You're going to be replaced by a horse that knows how to drive the tractor." It's a bullshit farcical conversation, because at the end of
yeah,
the day, we understand that tractor is the technology, right? And you're
yeah,
saying, horse, be the driver of a tractor now. That's not how life works, my friend. You got that right? How, like, don't worry, horse, you're not going to get replaced by a tractor. You're going to get replaced by a horse that drives a tractor. Horses and tractors don't go together. What I'm saying to you is this: nobody's Mr. Yves Saint Laurent, God rest his soul. I think he's gone. He definitely is. um, Yves Saint Laurent, if he was alive and in this situation, it's not like he doesn't want to use AI. And perhaps he doesn't. Maybe that's a different case because he's a superstar, whatever, whatever, right? But let's say there is, it's about self-preservation. As a person who believes in self-preservation, I need to learn this because it's going to help me do that, right? I get it. But now, you asked about 5 minutes ago, these creative leads, these Don Drapers around the world, what are they doing now that they have AI? Is there more time to do it? It's they don't have they've already got enough on their plate. The way they're doing it, I'm not saying they're not adopting AI, but what I'm saying is, internally, and this is an opinion. I don't speak for all agencies around the world, so it's a pretty big industry. My opinion is, rather than investing in those Don Drapers, agencies are doing what these articles are saying. They're not waiting to to teach Yves Saint Laurent how to use AI. They're just going, it's just bloody easy to just get someone else. and
yeah,
and that exists in all industries. It's happened since industrial revolution. People change, people and occupations change. But the way AI is kind of has got a stronghold of marketing and advertising. It's very hard to see a future. I mean, I think Anthropic, I believe it was Anthropic, recently said Anthropic 65% of marketing professionals will be replaced by AI ops. Advertising is the Old Testament. You know, no one is worried about using the technology. I think the way the technology is being used, I think you have to add the word AB before it. It's being abused. When it comes to a commercial endeavor, people will always find a way to do it cheaper to make more money. And you're not arguing with me on that. You're talking about yourself in this case. Praveen the man, not just Praveen the guy who works with Microsoft. That's going to happen to technology as well, technology sector as well. I I I don't mean to sound selfish. I think a world where with more drab AI slop versus an Oppenheimer is going to be a shitty world.
yeah,
I'm not comparing myself to a heart surgeon. We saving lives, and yes, of course, it's about self preservation. But what I'm saying is, 25 years ago, you used to hate advertising. I'm sure everyone does. But 25 years ago, everybody hated lawyers until they needed a lawyer. Every, people hate advertising 25 years ago, but they remember that one ad and they laugh at it and they can share it or whatever it is, right? With AI running things, it's not going to be, it's just going to die. The, the,
Why is AI running things? So why? I mean,
well,
is
because
that
I can
what
get
you're
a Mac
saying?
Mini. Because as a CEO, I can just get a bunch of Mac Minis to do the job now.
You're taking a big risk. Like if you're completely, when I say, like where's if well, everyone can do that, right? So where's your differentiation? Like
The
then your
differentiation.
output will be the same as any other agency.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, you're right. No, but here's the thing, right? The differentiation is, again, it's about democratization. When you democratized it to the point where anyone can do it with a Mac Mini, now imagine someone with resources that are 1,000 times doing it. What I'm saying is the democratization has made it that someone with 1,000 times resource can do the same thing, and they can answer your question. That's okay. We'll do trial and error. We'll get to it, but I can still do it with 5% of the workforce. Atlassian in Australia, right? Just last week, didn't they get rid of 10% of their workforce around the world, right? What was the reasoning? Before that, who's the founder of Twitter? Dorsey. Was it Dorsey? Jack Dorsey, right?
Yeah.
Jack Dorsey, his latest company, which I don't know what it does, it just on a video message just got rid of everybody, and the reason was AI, right? Where are they going to go? You can train a, and by the way, I'm asking, I don't know the answer, and I'm not expecting you to have the answer, but this is why we have this debate. This is why I want to put it out there. You can train someone who puts on horseshoes on horses to work on the Model T Ford when cars start arriving, right? Because the amount of people you need to service or maintain horses, 10-20% less maybe, but you can use the same workforce to put in a factory to build cars. Where are the humans going to go?
Look, things are changing so fast. Say, like, I don't know, 5 years from now, like, I reckon the world's going to look incredibly different. And for me, yeah, there's all these headlines, and this is going to happen. But for me, I always bring it back to, well, what can I do, right? Like, for me, it's also about, hey, it, it's great, Praveen, if I don't need to keep working till I'm, 60 years old and I can only work till, 55, great. And then I enjoy following other passions, etc., whatever. But for everyone, it's a different story. But there's a role as we, as an individual, to kind of, if you're not thinking about AI, I think, your audience are very much not in that space, right? So let's not focus too much on what you should do there. But if you are in a space where your industry is impacted by AI, look, and more as an industry, I think for me, marketing and advertising's got to look at the human element. I'm preaching to the converted here, right? I mean, this is more what makes the industry more human. What makes it more unique. I think it's more important than ever, because like, AI can come up with 10,000 banner ad ideas, but, like, how do you pick the one that is gonna resonate with your customers? And AI can mathematically go through so many different ideas, but it's only the human brain can make that illogical leap from a experience that you had as a teenager to like a brand message that you might want to communicate as part of a campaign, right? That leap, only I feel that only a human can make that kind of leap. So you gotta focus on that stuff. I have to focus on that stuff. That's, like, for me, I'm in a sales role, and there's a lot of part of my job that's administrative, etc. And I'm always looking at ways to where I can use AI to operationalize things, etc. So the reason I'm in sales is because I love being with my customers, in front of my customers. But increasingly, it's challenging to actually spend more and more time because of all these other things you got to do. But if I can actually spend 80%, 90% of my time face to face, like with my customers, man, I'll be so happy, right? So I'm looking at how can I use AI to help me get to that point, right? So and reskilling, yeah, totally get your point. Like working with AI is probably not everyone's cup of tea, right? Um, but AI is here, whether we like it or not. So we got to think about how
I, I
we evolve and adapt.
I don't think anyone in our industry would ever say
Yeah,
that AI is not our cup of tea. That was never
yeah.
the claim. The claim is, um, actually, I didn't mention the claim, but what I when you
No,
when
I was
you've got
talking about
when you
horseshoe example,
right,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah.
I want to
When
model
you
for
have an industry that's privatized, public facing, holding companies, the decision making on where the quality is going, much like a tech billionaire, right, would
Yeah,
be like a Dorsey would just go, hey, I don't
yeah,
need, or even Elon Musk. I've bought Twitter now I'm calling it X. 75% go, right? He can do that because he's got that power. It's really lovely to be. I agree every positive thing that you've been saying about, we shouldn't be worried about AI in this way, and this is not about lack of eagerness to embrace. This is about, the means have become so accessible that no one's asking us for our opinion on the matter. Do you know what I mean? We can all sit around kumbaya and say that we need that human element to make it work. And you're absolutely right. I'm not arguing with you on that. I'm saying
yeah.
I'm not making that decision. And the people who are making the decision don't have my skill either. You know what I mean? They're not experts of what I do. They're just people who have shares.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
different, you know?
yeah.
That's a hard way of looking at it. When Jack Dorsey or whoever, or whoever does these things, they're not doing it because they don't know what everybody does. They don't know that Praveen's got a mortgage and whatever it is.
Everyone, I mean, at that level, everyone's making decisions, thinking this is what's gonna um, keep us competitive or ahead of the market, or and then you see is that a good decision? Did that help meet your customer demands, satisfy your customers? So
I
I
I
think I
think
think
if
market will be the judge of that. Yeah,
I think if Hollywood, I don't want to ever say that we are on the same footing as someone like that, but because it's a creative field, I think if the if the bulk of Hollywood spending wasn't on talent, which it is,
yeah,
they wouldn't be so powerful enough that the same thing wouldn't be happening to Hollywood right now. And it is already happening in Hollywood anyway. But they are so strong in terms of, there are these multi millionaires who are, at least for the next decade, they're still the human face of entertainment, right? They are keeping things at bay, right? Because there's a disparity in Hollywood, how Hollywood and the real world is. We are
yeah,
of the same thinking process of what we do, but we don't have those people on our side who are the Tom Cruises or Brad Pitt to say, no, fuck off. Back off. You're not touching this. You don't have Christopher Nolan saying, no,
yeah,
you can't do that. So when you're a commercial outfit, you don't have a choice in the matter. You're kind of just going with the flow. You're just going with things. It's you could go to H&M and buy the same thing off the rack that you see on a haute couture thing made by a fashion designer, right? They don't have a brilliant mind at it. They have their own version of AI, right? It's called
yeah.
kids and sewing machines, right? That is their version of it. That is their version of it. There's a reason why we look at H&M and all these other Shanes and all this stuff, and we say, don't buy that. They're single-use clothes. I don't know. I don't really know that world, but I've read a little bit about it, and I would equate to having cheap labor is like AI in this case. And the reason it hasn't happened in Hollywood, which is the highest form of creativity, I would say, most understandable, at least for this conversation, it's only being controlled because the people there are the big money makers. We don't have that
Yeah.
parachute.
I, I think this is where, look, I'm also seeing across customers and industry, this whole evolution of AI for productivity versus AI for substance within your organization, within your industry, right? So I think it's
Could you explain?
maybe it's
Could you explain the two? I don't understand productivity and substance. How are they different, or how are you
so
explaining it to
AI
be different?
productivity is about, okay, suddenly because of AI, I can do more things with the same amount of resources, or I can achieve the same outcome with less resources. So that's productivity, basically, right? So I mean, that's how you drive productivity, right? Um,
The
you
substance.
do, yeah. So AI for substance is where you really think about why do you? I mean, why do you as an organization exist, right? And what are you trying to do with it, with your customers, in education industry in terms of teaching and learning. So, what are you trying to do? And really looking at how you can use AI to solve problems in the industry that was impossible to solve until now, or very expensive, or um, and really look at, okay, how can I use that to actually really crack some big problems that we couldn't tackle before, right? So I think that's what I mean by sort of AI for productivity versus AI for substance. Because when I read the headlines and all that kind of stuff, I think things around productivity is what gets sensationalized because it's kind of like clickbait, right? So, but more and more companies are starting to pivot, I feel, towards, how can we really use AI to do substantial things that, um, you know, move the needle on why we exist as a business and what we try to do for our customers and stakeholders.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's easy to get caught up in the noise of the doom and gloom, shall we say? And a lot of the things that you mentioned about how to use it for substance. Productivity is productivity, and I think it's good that there are things for productivity. It frees us up to do more things or other things, right? And that's great. It's not just like you said, like if I can retire 55 and do other things, that's great. Um, I don't know if I
I
don't
mean,
we don't know,
I'm
we don't
not
know the answer.
saying that the other things are real, right? The other impacts we spoke about are real, right? And this is where I do feel it's not necessarily just a role for market forces here, right? Employers, employees. I think there's a role for government, right? In terms of how technology like AI gets adopted safely, in a responsible way, and also catch people that get impacted. So they've got the right tools, the options, the mechanisms to kind of potentially pivot and do something different, with or without AI, right? So I think that there's a role for, role for government to play there as well.
And some nations are getting involved, obviously.
Yeah.
I know recently. I mean, there's always protection. I'm seeing and reading more protectionist laws being passed. There was one in the Supreme Court in the US recently that said that AI content cannot be copyrighted. That helps for creative people, artists, to protect their work,
yeah,
musicians, and all the like.
yeah,
And there are rules for different things. Australia is a champion. I know that for a lot of things where they push to protect people. I know you guys have to have a passport recently for more than traveling nowadays. Um, there are ways that governments can get involved and take care of the activities like marketing in their own. You guys, is it Australia the one that something about Instagram a check or something, right?
yes. So we this is a highly divisive topic in
Okay.
Australia. So basically banned use of um, social media like Instagram, TikTok for under 16-year-olds.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But
So
yeah, we don't have
you
to.
age verify. Yeah.
We don't have to go into. I'm just saying that there are some countries who do more than others about how to control this wave of technology in whatever shape and form, not just in AI.
Yeah.
It's important that we do that because we've broken down the borders now, right? Of like, because
Yeah.
technology is not in one country anymore. Like social media, it just goes everywhere, right? It's good that that's happening. I think though that private advertising marketing companies, these are private entities, and
Yeah.
they serve a customer, a client, right? In this case, right? You give me the million, I will take 10%. I'll use the 900 to make something worth 1 million for you. Essentially, that's all
Yeah.
it is, right? We are not controlled by those same kind of market forces. That's happening at the $1 million place. Those decisions are being made by the people who are spending the million. We are just going for the ride and making sure that our 10% doesn't become 9%, as in
Mm.
our fee doesn't become 9%. So there's less incentive, I think, is the one of the things that we have to deal with. Look, it's again in the same way. It's not unlike what happens in the film industry, right? No producer is putting up $100 million unless they're going to make at least $150 million back, correct? It's economics. It's how it works. If that same producer can do that, can make 150 million for 50 million, he or she would, right? They have less control over that because it's a unionized industry. It's something that the people control. Marketing is not controlled by people. People are the asset, the talent, the tool. We are the tool in that sense, right? But
Yeah.
we don't move the
I was
strings.
actually curious about something, Z. Like, I mean, you mentioned kind of the large holding companies, etc. Right? What about the small guys and girls and the boutiques and agencies? What does AI mean for them? Do you think? Does it make it easier for those um, type of agencies to actually now compete or outcompete, perhaps the big guys
Very, very,
and
very,
how
very
would
good
that play
question.
out?
No,
Yeah,
it's very, very good question, and that is definitely you're spot on with what you just said. On the more challenger agencies are taking
yeah,
advantage of. I wouldn't say they're necessarily taking it. And by the way, again, I don't know what's happening in every part of the world, but I don't think they're necessarily taking advantage of it because they can use AI to get somewhere faster. I don't think so. I think everyone's adopted AI. I think the reason, my opinion, to the audience that I speak to, my opinion, why the challenger agencies are doing better universally, actually, globally, they're doing better
yeah,
than the big agencies is because the big agencies are doing the thing that we've been talking about. Because they have been streamlining, is the nicest way of saying it. The
yeah,
rate at which they're streamlining it, that's where the challenger brands are coming as, you know what? You don't want cats on nunchucks. I can get you Tom
yeah,
Cruise. You're right.
yeah,
That is happening. but it sets the tone for where we're going regardless. It's how it works.
Yeah.
You can be Microsoft, you can be Nanosoft, but what Microsoft does has an impact on you eventually. You can take advantage of it when you guys slip, but it all kind of, streams, evenly to everywhere. It's a trend thing, right? Just it because at the end, here's what you do know about my. I'm not going to use Microsoft because I don't want to be rude, because you work with Microsoft. I'm going to say Zuck. Okay, I'm going to say Facebook, right? I'm going to use Meta as an example. If what you just said, right? But what does Zuck do? He's Meta. If there's a challenger brand, if Facebook isn't taking advantage of something, he'll just fucking buy them. He just
Yeah.
fucking bury them.
Yeah.
So now that you know that that's the dynamic, right? There's a Zuck and everybody else who has a wallet to take care of the problem. Now, what if Zuck has got so much money that he can make even more money now because he's got AI. He's got no more humans to worry about. The
Yeah.
power dynamic never gets better. So what I'm saying is, if that situation happens, then the challenger brands are going to suffer again eventually. Yes, they're kind of riding this wave right now.
So look, I think whether it's at a team level, organizational or industry level, I'm hoping that the right sort of human in the loop balance comes out. So it becomes AI for greater good. I'm that's how that choose to view things. Yeah. Um, and you know, I, I have the same sort of concerns, etc., like anybody else, and but always sort of I bring it back to myself. What can I control, right? How can I, as Praveen, continue to add value every day, whether it's to my customers or for the company I work with, right? And sort of let that drive my thinking around what I do today and what I prepare for tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, you were still around before IoT. When IoT came, you switched to IoT, right? IoT hasn't existed through since the beginning of a career. You chose to jump on that because you could see the possibilities, the potential, and you've, I guess, done again another leap now into the stuff that you're doing now, which includes AI. And the same thing goes with us in marketing. We've lived in a world before digital advertising, when it was just TV and newspapers and radio, and we adapted, right? We've always adapted. It's not a fresh industry. um I All I'm saying, I think, is, what if we don't have there's no what if there's no more a chair and desk to leap to? You can give someone a choice to go from pre IoT to IoT. Here's the IoT desk and chair that you can work on, right? You can ignore it and you can become a dinosaur. And then the AI thing comes in, and then Praveen moves to the next desk and chair, right? But what I'm saying to you is, in your case, our case, everyone's case, what if the next leap doesn't have a desk and chair? It's just a big data center.
Find something that you enjoy.
Everybody's
That's
got to become.
right. Yeah.
Let's leave it at this. I think let's all try to become farmers. Start. We go back to our brown hood bloodline.
Yeah,
To the fields.
I'd love to spend more time in Sri Lanka by the beach in the southern coast. That's me.
Good, as yeah, as if you can keep that lifestyle at a time before it is thrust upon you. Fantastic,
Yeah,
man.
that's the thing, right? I think that's what, look, that's the pressure, right? Whether at an individual level or at an organizational level. That's the that's the pressure curve everyone's sort of working on, right? You you want to continue to exist and continue to do what you do and deliver value, right? So, and AI has come along and given us some quite a few interesting things to work with and think about.
Yeah, man. That's why it was high time I had one of these chats about this, a topic that I've been deliberately trying to avoid because I don't think it's fair. We don't know the end. We don't know where the finish line is.
Yeah.
Mr. Praveen Senadheera, thank you so much for doing this, and for enduring the long history and the journey that advertising and marketing has been taken. And
No, I've enjoyed it. It's been a blast. Thank you, Z.